In the 1830s, in Palmyra, New York, a young farm boy named Joseph Smith claims an angel directed him to a set of buried golden plates, which he translates into the Book of Mormon, birthing a new, global religion. In 1844, in Lowhampton, New York, a Baptist preacher named William Miller calculates the exact date of Christ's return. His followers, the Millerites, sell their possessions and gather on hilltops, only to be met with the rising sun. This great disappointment doesn't end a movement. It splinters, directly creating the Seventh-day Adventist Church. In 1848, in Hydesville, New York, two young girls, the Fox sisters, claimed to communicate with a spirit in their house through a series of rappings. Within a decade, their discovery explodes into spiritualism, a new religion that sweeps America and Europe, with millions attempting to contact the dead. In 1848, just a few miles away in Oneida, New York, a man named John Humphrey Noyes establishes a utopian commune based on his belief that the kingdom of God has arrived. They practice complex marriage, a form of religiously sanctioned polyamory, and create a world-famous silverware company. What is going on here? This isn't just a random list. This is all happening in the exact same place, at the exact same time. A small, specific region of upstate New York. In the span of about 30 years, this one area became a religious and social hotbed, a kind of spiritual Silicon Valley, launching some of the most radical, enduring, and uniquely American movements in history. This phenomenon was so intense that the famous revivalist preacher Charles Finney, who swept through the area, gave it a name, the Burned-Over District. The name meant that the fire of religious revivals had passed through so many times. There was no fuel left to burn. But what if the fire didn't just burn out the population? What if it created a kind of spiritual and psychological tinderbox? What if it created the perfect storm of anxiety, freedom, and chaos that made inventing a new religion not just possible, but inevitable? Today, we explore one of the strangest and most fertile chapters in American history. Why did this one small corner of New York become a psychic hothouse for new religions? The explosion of the Burned-Over District wasn't an accident. It was the result of at least 4 powerful, volatile ingredients that combined in the same place at the same time. Ingredient 1. The new religious free market. For the first time in modern Western history, religion was a free market. In Europe, a state-sponsored tax-funded church, like the Anglican, Lutheran, or Catholic Church, held a monopoly. If you started a new religion, you'd be branded a heretic and likely arrested, exiled, or executed. But in America, the First Amendment had changed the game. The government could make no law respecting an establishment of religion. For the first time, religion was disestablished. This created an open, competitive marketplace of ideas. You could start a new church in your living room, and the government couldn't stop you. It was an age of spiritual entrepreneurship. Ingredient 2. The burned-over psychological fuel. This is the psychological core. The dominant religious culture of the Burned-Over District was Calvinism, brought by settlers from New England. And Calvinism, for all its intellectual rigor, was built on a terrifying doctrine, predestination. This was the belief that God had, before the beginning of time, chosen who was elect going to heaven and who was reprobate going to hell. And this is the terrifying part: there was nothing you could do about it. Worse, you could never be 100% sure which group you were in. This doctrine created profound, crippling spiritual anxiety. People were desperate for some sign, some feeling, some proof that they were saved. This desperation is what fueled the fiery revivals of preachers like Charles Finney. These revivals offered a moment of intense, emotional release, crying, shouting, falling down. But after the emotional high wore off, the old anxiety returned. The district was burned over, not just with no fuel left, but with people who were spiritually exhausted, anxious, and deeply dissatisfied with the old, uncertain answers. They were a population primed for a new, better, more certain answer. Ingredient 3. The Yankee mindset, the spiritual tinkerer. The people who settled this area were largely the Yankee descendants of New England Puritans. They were famously literate, industrious, self-reliant, and, above all, they were tinkerers. This was a culture of people who believed that any problem could be solved with enough ingenuity and hard work, whether it was building a new plow, a new canal, or a new government. They applied this same tinkerer mindset to religion. They didn't just passively receive faith from a bishop. They actively deconstructed and rebuilt it. They were religious do-it-yourselfers. If the old theology was broken, they would invent a new one that worked. Ingredient 4. The economic and social chaos, the Erie Canal. This is the physical catalyst. In 1817, this region was a quiet, agricultural frontier. Then, in 1825, the Erie Canal opened. The canal was the internet superhighway of its day. It turned this quiet farmland, almost overnight, into the economic and transportation corridor of the entire nation. It brought a massive, sudden influx of new people, Irish immigrants, New England merchants, new ideas, new money, and new social problems. It was a classic boom-and-bust economy. Towns exploded in size. Fortunes were made and lost. The old, stable, small-town social order shattered. People were dislocated, anonymous, and surrounded by strangers and chaos. When society feels unstable and chaotic, people grasp for new, stable, spiritual answers. The old, quiet village church was no longer enough. They needed something as radical and new as the world they were living in. This perfect storm of a free market, spiritual anxiety, a tinkerer mindset, and social chaos created the ultimate startup incubator for new religions. Each new movement was, in effect, a new product designed to solve the specific spiritual problems of the age. 1. Mormonism, the certainty solution. This is the case of Joseph Smith, who lived near Palmyra, right on the canal route. He was a classic Yankee tinkerer from a family caught in this new, chaotic economy. As a young boy, he was deeply confused by the competing claims of the revivals, which church is true. His solution was not to pick one of the old ones. It was to provide a new one with ultimate authority. The problem, Calvinism, is uncertain. The revivals are chaotic. The product, the Book of Mormon, a new, tangible, physical text delivered by an angel. A prophet, Joseph, who could ask God a question and get a direct answer. The appeal, Mormonism, offered certainty. It cut through the war of words by offering a brand new, final revelation. It replaced the anxiety of predestination with a complex, ladder-like afterlife where you could work and progress toward godhood, a perfect theology for a self-reliant tinkerer culture. 2. Spiritualism, the scientific solution. This is the case of the Fox sisters in Hydesville. The problem, Calvinism's hell is terrifying, and its heaven is uncertain. When your child dies, a tragically common event, you are left in agonizing doubt. The product, the spiritual telegraph. A way to contact the dead directly and empirically. The appeal, spiritualism presented itself as a new science, not an old faith. It used the language of the telegraph, of vibrations and forces. It offered proof. You didn't have to believe your child was in heaven. You could ask them. And the spirits always reported a Summerland, a place of progress and peace. It abolished hell and provided empirical certainty, a perfect bomb for an age of grief and scientific optimism. 3. Adventism. The mathematical solution. This is the case of William Miller. The problem: the world is chaotic. When will it end? The when is the source of all anxiety. The product: a date, October 22nd, 1844. The appeal. Miller was also a tinkerer, a farmer who spent years tinkering with biblical numbers. He offered a mathematical certainty that cut through all the spiritual speculation. For his followers, the anxiety was over. The end was calculated. 4. The Utopians, Shakers, and Oneida. The social solution. These groups went even further. The problem: the new world of the Erie Canal was defined by chaotic, competitive capitalism and the corrupt institution of traditional marriage. The product: a new society built from scratch. The appeal: the Shakers offered an escape into a perfect, communal order, with no private property and, most radically, no sex, which they saw as the root of all sin. The Oneida community offered the exact opposite: an escape into complex marriage, a communal solution to sexual and economic jealousy. Both were radical, live-action attempts to build the kingdom of God on earth, now, to escape the chaos of the outside world. So, the burned-over district was not a cursed place, it was a crucible. It was a uniquely American perfect storm where total religious freedom met profound psychological anxiety, a can-do cultural mindset, and sudden, destabilizing economic chaos. This combination created a startup culture for faith. Some, like the Shakers or the Millerites, burned brightly and faded. Others, like the Latter-day Saints, survived, consolidated, and grew into a stable, global religion. This leaves us with the final, crucial debate. How should we, as historical observers, view this extraordinary, chaotic period? On one side, argument A: was this a period of unparalleled American spiritual genius? Was it a second enlightenment of the common person? A time when, freed from the chains of state-run churches and old-world dogma, the American mind exploded with creativity, courage, and a profound desire to build a better, more just world. Was this a genuine, if messy, spiritual outpouring on the other side, or was the burned-over district a case of mass social contagion, a period of psychic hysteria where a population, unmoored by social chaos and traumatized by terrifying theology, became the easy prey of charismatic charlatans, religious fads, and collective delusions? Was it, as its critics claimed, a hotbed of fanaticism and a nursery of new isms? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts, respectfully, in the comments below. If you found this deep dive into the chaotic, creative, and uniquely American origins of some of the world's newest religions fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that uncovers the hidden stories behind our beliefs. Thanks for watching.